Your Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free, Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
This is Stress-Free Living. I'm Ray Samich. Thank you so much for being with us today. And as always, I'd like to introduce everyone to my dear friend and our co-host, Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you this fine day?
Wonderful, Ray. You're looking good.
I'm on my way to recovery. Good to hear. Thank you for all of those who have been inquiring about my health. I've had some little setbacks, but I'm doing well this morning. So I appreciate being back with all of you. And we are with you in so many different ways now. We are coming to you streaming around the world at wintradio.com. You can also pick us up on a number of the directories, podcast directories, on TuneIn Radio, and locally in the Cleveland area on FM and AM radio, 101.5 and 1330 AM. However you're listening to us live or recorded, we welcome you and thank you for being part of our audience. And we also have a number of people with us on our Zoom feed here today. We're representing from several different states already and from a couple different countries. We have a special guest with us once again from Vancouver, got up extra early in the morning, and he joined us last week on this topic, and we asked him to come back again. Dr. Jagjit Singh, thank you so much, Dr. Singh, for returning with us again today.
Thanks, Ray.
And to bring everyone up to speed, this is actually the third part of this series. I don't know how many times we've done three parts on one particular topic, but for Ratanjit, the first two weeks on this, all we really did was further expound on how bad the problem is. And we didn't really get into any kind of solutions. And since this is stress-free living radio, we're trying to reduce stress, not create it. So we thought we'd better do one more show to help us to really consider some of the resolution of the problem. And for those of you who are not familiar with the problem that we've been discussing, it's the nature of jobs, especially in America, but really on a global basis, something that for probably the last 80 years since the Industrial Revolution, this country was built on getting jobs, going to work, earning a paycheck, being able to pay for your house, your car, your food, your clothes, anything that you needed for your family, hopefully a little more than that, so you could put some away for retirement, put some away for a rainy day or for a vacation. But over the last year and a half, that situation has changed dramatically. And in particular, within about a 90-day period after the pandemic, 11 million people quit their jobs. And many surveys say that that number is going to dramatically continue to increase to the point as many as 35 to 42%, depending on the surveys of thousands of people, are actually saying they are considering or planning to quit their jobs. And so that is why, if you're trying to go to your favorite restaurant, they may have tables, but they don't have anyone to serve you. That's why some hotels, when you go there, you can't get maid service, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody has help wanted signs out, but the population is not responding. So it's a big dilemma, and it's certainly something that's going to affect all of us. So we talked about it. It affects the business community. It affects us as individuals. At the same time as people were quitting their jobs, there was a record number of new businesses started, new businesses applied for at the state levels across the country. So a lot of people plan to go in business for themselves. And for most people that have been in business, you know that that's a great idea. If you can do it, wonderful. But the great majority of businesses that are started fail. So is that the solution? So that's kind of a quick background. Perhaps we can add, Ratanjit, some of your comments here, since I went lengthy as our introduction. And then we also want to hear from Dr. Jagjit in terms of his interesting take on this relative to the algorithms being used that are also greatly influencing how many people are in our workforce?
All right. The most interesting thing is that we human beings, when we are creatively busy, when we produce something, that is where our true happiness comes from. We would like to be useful. So in today's job, many of these jobs, basic agenda is I have to put food on the table. So whatever the job is, I'm going to cope with it. So they are producing stress. And then we are not treating human beings as human beings. We are treating them as a need for the business, and they are employees, they are subordinates, we classify them. So that is where the problem starts with. We know, all of us really know the solution. See, the humanity has not totally clearly understood the real capitalism. We are parked in the pseudo-capitalism. And as a consequence, it only works for some and depletes others. In the real capitalism, everybody gains. But we don't understand that because we are all parked in our illusion of separateness. We are all parked in what is in it for me.
It's a really interesting take that you use pseudo-capitalism in your conversation there, because you've used that term about a lot of other things that we think are one way, we accept as being one way, and then you bring up that it's not really truly there. And this may be another good example of that, because I think most Americans, or many Americans at least, are very proud that we are a capitalist country. We have the idea that we have a work ethic, that anyone who has the so-called American dream can succeed and take their success to whatever level they want to, and that based on capitalism, we're able to get ahead. If we work, if we plan, if we try as hard as we can and do the right things, we can be successful. That's kind of the core of a capitalist environment. But you're right, also at the core of it says that everybody is benefiting from it, that the lowest people also raise because they're the workers and they're making a living. And because the people at the top are making more money, the people at the bottom are making more money. And so it raises the entire level of society. And you're now suggesting, as I know you shared over the last couple of weeks, the owners, the biggest CEOs in this country, the ratio of their earnings to the average worker is the biggest gap across the world. There's a biggest discrepancy between what the CEOs make and what the workers make.
Yeah, since 78, the CEO their pay raise have increased to 1,008%, whereas the normal person, their pay raise has only increased 11%. So look at the discrepancy. So let's hear from Dr. Jagjit. What is his take on this?
I fully agree with Ratanjit that the capitalism as it should be for the benefit of the people, it is not there. It has not proven, in all over the world, it has not proven. They are only for making selfish money. I would rather put it that way, and they use each and every method to do it. Maybe they are using automation, maybe they are using innovation, whatever we call it, give different names to it. But the workers should not get much from it. So that is where the IT industry has also helped them in making robots, in making so many things with artificial intelligence and algorithm, because I was dealing with those factors. With algorithms, they are able to reduce the people, and they are able to make those people who are sort of not required in the, and reducing their salary and putting a fear in them that they will be gone from the factories or gone from the institutions. So that is creating more of a fear factor. And then the politics also is playing an important role by putting that, okay, bringing in racism, gender equality, other things also into the picture, so that they can politically, they can be masters. And political capitalism, crony capitalism, I would call it crony capitalism nexus, is much more dangerous for humanity rather than any other thing. The inequality created is enormous. All over the world it is being done, and we see that inequality indexes and other things, and how it is being affected. It is horrible to see them if we go into those details. So in the name of efficiency and the job, there are job losses or not even a job creation type of thing.
So since we are talking about the solution today, Ray, I want to give you are a businessman. See, if you remember Henry Ford, who started automobile industry.
The assembly line is what he's famous for.
Assembly line. So what he did was he made his worker capable of buying a car. He paid them enough to buy a car. So his sales were not only increased from outside people, but also from inside people. So the thing is, we have to think and change our paradigm from job creation to wealth creation. Now, supposing you have a company, you employ 1,000 people or 10,000 people. Okay, now, and you are cutting costs. One of the way you are increasing profit is you are minimizing the cost. And you see as salary as a cost. So you are paying people as little as you can get away with. Now imagine if you are able to pay them higher salary, or if our employees own third of the company, if you give them, if you are not able to pay initially, if you give them ownership in the company, and as their wealth grows, their buying power grows. Imagine if our society has all the employees with a higher buying power, our economy was triple, because it is all about buying power. So we are actually minimizing the buying power in this pseudo-capitalism. So if my purpose is to become wealthy, then I have to create a model which allows my company to multiply many folds. And that can only happen if I enhance the buying power of my customers, or if I create new customers. And one of the best way to create customer is to increase the buying power of your employees. Not only they'll buy your product, they'll buy other products, or overall economy will grow.
I certainly want to comment on that because I think that's a brilliant idea, brilliant concept that could be definitely part of the solution. But before I even go there, I'd like to take a moment because I think for whatever reason in our world right now, maybe because of politics, because of the media, there seems to be two extremes that are pointed out. There seems to be capitalism the way it's being done in the United States, and I agree, there's certainly problems with it. And the disparity that you mentioned between the CEO payments and the average person, I mean, that's unacceptable. There's no reason for that type of thing. And there's a whole lot of other issues too. A lot of, the algorithms that are not allowing 70% of the people to even be considered to go to school and to get into jobs, and that's unacceptable. There's a whole lot of things that are unacceptable about the present way that we operate in business. But also, the only other alternative that seems to be presented is along the lines of socialism / communism. I mean, that's the two ends that are being presented here. Capitalism doesn't work, so we need socialism. And that's a big part of the politics out there right now. And that battle that is being fought on a national stage is that we need to do more socialist type of programs from the government and with the people. And we need to take the money from the rich and we need to give it to the poor and put it into programs. So you have these two extremes. And while I personally don't agree that capitalism is perfect the way it's being executed, I also don't like the idea of a socialist nation. I think just as capitalism hasn't been successful anywhere around the world in its truest form, I know that socialism also hasn't been successful anywhere in the world. And so what I really like, my point from all this, Ratanjit, is that I love that you have given us another alternative. All right, there has to be a better way than what isn't working now and what we know really won't work if we try it. And the idea of bringing that entire group of people up through a wealth creation as opposed to job creation mentality is certainly worth considering. I mean, that would seem to be the idea that would put America back on the map in terms of being something that everybody wants to be like and do. So I guess I'd like to hear Jack Cheat on that one, on your thoughts there, because based on your last thoughts, I know you don't think capitalism could work. Do you think Ratanjit's idea here could be successful?
Yeah, I think there should be an in-between idea. There should be a cap on the limits, what a CEO versus the lowest paid gets. Maybe it is 10 times or 15 times, but it should be there. And the rest of the wealth can be distributed so that, because even the worker is contributing towards the profit of the company, so he should get a bit of share in there, and that creates a higher buying power for everybody. So that should be there. And there should be something in between model, because both, as you have said, both the extremes have not worked. But then there is a middle path also. The middle path can be adapted, and the government should enforce somehow that there should be a regulation on the maximum ratios between something like that, because we find it in some of the institution, it is already there, and they are worked very nicely with the whole community being developed. So selfishness and the selfish, as Ratanjit Singh have said, that the selfishness motive of the corporates or the bigger people, higher people, that should reduce a bit, and it should reach a contentment level. As well as for the workers, it should be and for other people, it should be improving their dream also. Instead of leading to slavery sort of a thing, and ultimately at the end, it boils down to a slavery type of thing. Maybe it's a mental slavery or corporate slavery, you can call it. So that is where the stress and other things automatically come in.
See, Ray, I think you need to take a break because
Not quite yet. We can take another thought here.
So before you start, I want to make a point. We don't even know how to be selfish. If we understood what is best for us, what is best for me, if I really know that, then that will help everybody else. Because fundamentally, there is a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, which is very empowering. It says, it boils down to this, that all life is interrelated. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And this has been proven scientifically that if the masses have negative thoughts, it affects people thousands of miles away. So we are basically electronic system, and we generated waves, and the waves travel all around everywhere, and they affect us. They affect our thinking, they affect our happiness. So in order for me to be selfishly happy, if I understood that my selfishness comes from my being happy, then I have to create an environment of happiness. Otherwise, my selfishness does not work. It imprisons me the way short distance selfishness, which we think that I'm worried about me today, but if you are able to be selfish in the right sense, if I know that I need to serve me, but if I don't know how to serve me, and I don't even know who in me I'm serving, then I can't be even selfish. So that is fundamentally what is going on.
That sounds a little confusing, maybe a lot confusing, Ratanjit, right now. But I think the one point that I did hear from you, and it makes sense, is that it's kind of like, we talk about pleasure and joy. Pleasure is real short term, instantaneous feelings of pleasure, of happiness. Joy is long-term sustained gratification. And if we take that same analogy kind of to selfishness, we could say that, a CEO that pays himself 1,000 times more than his workers, he's going to be selfish there, but it's probably only going to last for a very short window because his workers are not going to want to work for that situation. And he's going to get found out, and all that joy, temporary joy or pleasure that he's feeling for that short period of time being selfish is not really going to be sustainable. Whereas if he truly was more fair with how he was paying people and building wealth within his whole organization, his whole team, then he could still do better than everybody else. He could still be selfish, using that word, but he would also have long-term fulfillment from that because he still could be the boss on top. He could still have an ego. He could still be making a lot of money, but he's also now has a sustainable model because he's paying his people. Is that a fair assessment of some of what you were trying to say?
Well, see, let me go a little in a different direction. Maybe I can explain that.
Then maybe we should take that whole different direction and do that after our quick break.
Yes.
All right. So we do need to take a short time away here. This is Stress-Free Living. We're going to come back and continue to try to find the solution to the job situation. Does it take a paradigm shift? Do we need to focus on wealth creation for our workers instead of job creation? It's a great point. We're going to explore that much more on Stress-Free Living. Stay with us. All right. We have about 2 minutes away, and this is the time if any of our people who have been listening would like to ask a question or comment, please do now.
Yeah, Ratanjit, I think your point is perhaps along the lines of what I think, watching what's going on as we're evaluating values in our lives, and we're experiencing paradigms, what's happening, paradigms in perception, or a new focus, which is taking place more at a non-material level. But I think that as we are realizing, there's probably more disruptions and despair to come. But as we refocus, I think it's more on a spiritual level that people are finding this. And I think they're awakening spiritually to a certain extent. I think you're seeing a development of mankind going through greater respect for each other, probably at the end of the day, maybe gaining greater confidence with each other. There is a lot of fear in society. AI, data sharing, things of that nature scare people. It's gotten too intrusive. And I think that the development of things like empathy are becoming more to the forefront than they have in the past. As people realize, it isn't the physical that they're after. It isn't the value of their own life comes in as they realize the time they get to spend with their families. I think there's an unconscious awareness that's growing, which is good as a race worldwide. Although we're going to go through some rough spots to really get to that awareness, but there's certainly
And we are back on our program live on the radio. This is Stress-Free Living. Ray Samich with you and Ratanjit Sunday. And to let our radio audience know what we do during those breaks is we have really interesting conversations with some of our people that are on our Zoom call with us. And what I especially love about that is it makes my job real easy because they now bring out all the points behind the scenes that I can say on the radio and make me sound a whole lot smarter than I am. So I really appreciate Chris, for example, who just gave me a whole page of notes of things that we can talk about as we are trying to resolve the situation of saying what is the solution to bringing people back to work, allowing them to come back so that they want to come back into the workforce. And does that mean we have to reshape the entire workforce? I am going to bring up a number of the points that were just shared during the break, Ratanjit, but I want to go back to you first of all, because you were just talking about a different line of thought relative to the growth, the wealth creation mentality here. So if you can still remember what that was, despite the lack of the time here, what were you going to say? Do you recall?
Well, I think fundamentally, Ray, that if we don't know, see, nothing is bad. AI is not bad. Technology is not bad. It all depends on if the knife is in the hand of a murderer, he's going to kill. If the same knife is in the hand of a surgeon, he's going to save lives. So it depends on what our mindset is to do with these technology and these things. So fundamentally, as a human being, we are misunderstanding or we are not given this real understanding while growing up that we cannot exist in seclusion. We have whatever action we take, whether I start a business or I have a product, it is designed to serve humanity. It is not designed to make a one person or a group wealthy. So as long as we are now, if we are on that path, we will become wealthy. Because if you have a product or service which adds the highest value, definitely people are going to buy, and it makes transform people's life. And then if you have an organization where you are constantly challenging people's creativity, you are respecting them, and they are part of the corporation, they are happy, because a person need to be involved one way or other in making a contribution. We know that people, when they retire, they hardly live 3, 4, 5 years, because the purpose of life is to make a difference. I have to internally feel better about myself that I am making a difference. So money is a byproduct, but that byproduct becomes much bigger than this product if it is focused only on gathering money. If we focus on adding the highest value to humanity and understand that our purpose is to serve humanity, our purpose is to not extract from humanity the wealth I can garnish. So the purpose is to serve humanity. If that mindset exists, everything falls into place.
So Ratanjit, those thoughts especially relate to the business owner or the supervisors, the managers, the directors, how they treat people, how they pay people, how they operate the business. And I don't think anybody would dispute what you're saying. If those people operated with that mentality, with that spiritual based mindset, then people would want to work there, and people, this company probably would be very efficient, effective, and do all the right things that would make it successful. So no argument with that at all. I think what is interesting, though, is what was brought up on the break was that we have really been centered a lot on the money aspect, on the wealth creation, especially at the top. But during the break, one of our Zoom guests here talked about how his recent studies and his interaction with many people that he works with in business are really showing a paradigm shift in terms of what people are looking for, what the average worker, maybe the CEO too, but especially the average worker is reevaluating their life, reevaluating what's important to them, refocusing back on family, focusing back on things that bring them fulfillment and gratification, reconnecting with people. You know, the fact that we have been isolated in quarantine, now we can relate to people at a different level. So our empathy levels are higher. We're united more perhaps as a humanity than we have been in a while. And part of that, he pointed out, was because we all have concern about the pandemic, about the future, about things like technology and big data and artificial intelligence and all of those things that are kind of hanging over our heads that are becoming more reality, that they're going to be a big part of our life. So it's interesting that while we have focused mostly on the unfairness relative to finances, maybe a bigger part of the job crisis is that the workers themselves just are looking for something different than what they have had, and are just trying to refocus on how do I want to spend 40, 50, 60 hours a week for the next 10 to 50 years. What do I want to be doing? And maybe they just don't want to be a waitress. Maybe they just don't want to be a clerk in a retail store or a factory worker. And I'm not minimizing those jobs, but the reality is maybe these people are simply saying they want more. They want to do something that's more valuable to their life. Do you think it is a bigger deal today than it may have been 2 years ago or 10 or 20 years ago?
Well, see, anywhere we are using human beings as robots, their routine jobs, they keep on doing the same thing over and over again just to make money just to have a job, those jobs are not going to give satisfaction to people. So those jobs need to be automated. So that is where we use the technology. We need to get people involved in giving them opportunity to become creative in the job place. So they have personal, because every human being is created uniquely, Ray, as we have learned in this show, and every human being looks at it differently. So if we tap every person who is working for an organization, their creativity, even when you are working as a waitress or waiter or a small job. So if you give them power to think, power to do some creative thinking, they begin to enjoy that job. And then if they are part of the overall mission of the company, of the place, and they participate in ownership of the place, then financial part is taken care of. So there are two elements. One is the financial part, which does not truly motivate a person. The real part is if you are positioned to add the value, to utilize your inner creativity, so you begin to think higher of yourself. Your self-worth is not related to money. Self-worth is what you think of yourself. And that only comes from if you are able to make a difference, you are able to do some creative work. So we have deprived people of self-worth. We have only focused on wealth. That does not work.
You know, it's interesting that you made a point earlier. You said automated jobs. Basically, I think you even said boring jobs that can be automated will be. But you know, the personality, we have taken personality out of the picture. And even if somebody isn't creative necessarily, as creative as they would like to be, or even as, you know, educated or whatever, but you can drive through a McDonald's or a Starbucks, just a drive through, and your day could be uplifted by the personality on the other side of that speaker box. Okay. And I don't know if that's ever happened to you, Ratanjit, but it has happened to me a number of times.
Yes.
The personality that comes through, and I don't even see the face. I don't know if the man or woman is 20 or 50, and it doesn't matter. The personality that comes through that box changes my day. And, you know, that would be gone if we totally automated, and now it becomes the voice like we hear on our home speaker or on our GPS system. There is no personality there. That's just a professional voice. But I still think there's a place in our lives for jobs, service jobs with people that just enjoy their work and can make your day with the way they talk, the way they act, the way they perform.
See, the automation, if you are dealing with harsh chemical, they are going to compromise your health. Those things are to be automated. So
Sure.
There is definitely need for automation in each area where we have no interaction with human beings. And the other side of the coin is that as long as every interaction with other human being is considered an opportunity to make a difference, to elevate, to help, then that makes you feel good. If you make somebody laugh, if you make somebody's day better by small things, it makes so much difference.
Truly does. And thank you. I really think. So we are making some progress here today in terms of developing on the path of some solutions. We've talked about a growth of a thought of wealth creation as opposed to job creation. That's a great first step. We want to continue on that. But we also talked about changing the mindset of how we interact with our with our workers, giving them more opportunities to show their personality, to be creative, to be fulfilled with their job. So they don't just punch a clock for 9 hours, but they actually feel like their job matters, like they're adding value and that they're making a difference. So we need to take this, we're almost at the end of the show, so we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Ratanjit and Dr. Singh, I'd like to ask your recommendations on how we make this jump now. How do we get from where we are at today, that obviously isn't working, and how do we get that to the next level where it can work, both with wealth creation and with greater job fulfillment? Give you about 2 minutes to figure that one out. When we come back on Stress Free Living, we will have the answers and once and for all resolve the job crisis in this country. Please stay with us. Stress Free Living, we're back in just a moment. All right. So, Chris, great comments. Thank you. I used all of them. I tried to use as many as I could. It really added that whole different flavor to this. You may have something else. Does anybody else? I know these are so quick, these breaks, and then we can talk in 15 minutes at length.
Yes,
Yes.
Prakash here.
Yeah, Prakash.
In India, we have this cooperative system where some companies are owned by the members of the cooperative society, and some of them are very, very successful, and all concerned people are well off now. Like Ratanjit sir must be knowing about Amul company, Amul milk dairy products. So they have become the biggest in the country and the most popular brand in the country, and it's a cooperative. So we have in India mainly this limited companies and partnerships. But I feel that if we can have a sort of a company where the owner makes the workers as their partners for maybe for a small amount, small percentage, say up to 25% or 30%, there should be some incentive from the government to do that kind of a thing. Definitely the production will improve, the quality will improve, the company's working will improve. I've been thinking about it, but I don't know how to go about to make workers as partners.
Thank you for bringing that up. We'll bring that up. Thanks, Prakash. I lost track of time. I think we have 30 seconds more. Let's find out. Yeah, we do have a couple more seconds if anybody would like to comment. Okay, if not, we're back here in just a couple seconds. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your good thoughts. We are back on Stress Free Living. Ray Samik with you, Ratanjit Sandhi, our special guest, Dr. Jagjit Singh, and our whole plethora of brilliant individuals that are joining us from multiple countries and across the United States. We are so delighted to see them and have them be a part of our program, and we can interact with them during the breaks. We welcome you to be the same thing. If you'd like to, go out to the website, wintradio.com, and you can click on the link. Find the Zoom link there. Also find our YouTube station, which is Stress Free Living Radio. And also at the YouTube site, you can find the Zoom link. So a number of different ways that you can join us live every week. Ratanjit, I do want to mention one of the thoughts that was brought up here during the last break before we come back to kind of defining roles. But that is the idea that in India in particular, I know it's done here too in the United States, but the point was made that some of the most popular, successful companies, some of the most profitable and successful companies and brands are those that are owned by the employees, those that have become not major corporations with a couple of owners and CEOs, but owned by the employees. And I know that with crowdfunding, that is a new phenomenon that is also starting to happen here. I have seen some stories where some businesses that were failing went to the crowdfunding. They're owned now by the people in the community, and they are suddenly successful Because to your earlier point, if there's 1,000 people that own the company, they're going to want to buy from that company. So you not only spread the wealth potentially, but you also spread your customer base immediately, because now you have this kind of loyalty inherent in the company. So is that perhaps part of this solution in terms of satisfying the employees and creating more wealth opportunities? Is it more employee-owned businesses? Should that be what we're focusing on?
Yes, Ray, if we are looking to increase the wealth in human race and get them out of the poverty and get them out of, so we have to give them two things. Get them incentive to participate in wealth growth, but at the same time, when you make them partners, they think differently. Now they are thinking of making a difference to the entity which partially belongs to them. So this is what I was talking, that we don't know how to be even selfish. So I think we haven't heard from Dr. Jagjit. Let's hear his comment, and then I'll give you my final words.
Yeah, I agree that the wealth creation is very important, and the workers, if they are made the owners, they definitely think in a different way. One of the key things in any type of business is the natural resources, and natural resources belong to a country or belong to a particular place. Once any institution or any corporation is using natural resources, it should produce something which is for the benefit of the residents or benefit for the citizens of that country. Instead of creating that wealth and taking it to a few people. So if it is a cooperative or if it is the government has to play important role, even how the natural wealth is being used. Say, talking of coal mines or taking of petroleum industry or any other industry which is using natural resources of that country. How is it affecting the wealth of the residents of those countries? After all, those are the resources not only belonging to the corporation, but they are the resources belonging to the nation. So that once that wealth is somehow distributed, again, the selfishness of everybody, the way everybody thinks to be selfish has to change. I fully agree with that cooperatives are one of the solutions, but they are to be well managed, not politicized. Because if you see, many cooperatives have turned by the politicians and they have been used for their ends. So that is the key point where the government has to play a role. We have talked in the break about India. The cooperative banks have failed, whereas some of the cooperative movements have done very well. This company in Spain, the Mondragon company, is a cooperative. It has done beautifully, very well all over the thing. Amul is another example, but with a caution that it should not fall as a crony capitalism way. And it should really work for the people and for humanity. That is very, very important.
See, I think what else is very important is that we don't know right now as a country, maybe as a society, who we can trust. And right now, to say that, this is a brilliant idea, but to say that the government should be the one to control it, I think every day we find out that we can't trust the government. We truly can't. I mean, they lie to us on a daily basis and they manipulate what we do. Corporate America lies to us on a daily basis. So I don't think we have the answer in terms of what that monitoring system is at this point, because I wouldn't put this in the hands of the government. It'll be sure to be directed the way they want it to be and not in the best interest of society. But I do agree that some I don't know if we can trust the people to be self-enforcing. I would like to believe that we can. And perhaps to your point of being selfish, Ratanjit, if truly the business owners today saw that this is the ultimate way, the ultimate path to success, this is the win-win that they ultimately want. It does build the value of the company to the highest. It does function and bring efficiency and productivity to the highest. All of these things, people will love them. People will love the CEOs and managers. They won't despise them. I think this has so many benefits that it could work and be self-sufficient. What do you think?
Right. Ultimately, we have to change the mindset of all people. Until we do that, we are not going to get there, because these are solutions known to people. But they are part in a mindset that this what is in it for me. So ultimately, let me quote what Albert Einstein once said. Greatest scientist at that final age of his life, he says, a person experiences life as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. Our task must be to free ourselves from this self-imposed prison and, through compassion, find the reality of oneness. So until we realize that I am not a separate entity, I'm connected to everyone, the power within me which brings life in this body is the same. And that is, if the selfishness belongs to that reality of you, then it falls into place. What is in the best interest of the power within me, the real me? I'm not the human body. Human body hosts me. So if I understand the best way for me to fulfill the desire of my soul, my real me, that only happens by adding the highest value. It doesn't happen by collecting just the wealth. And the interesting part is, when you are focused on adding the highest value and not subtracting the value, you will become wealthy. That is the fundamental understanding which we are missing. So if we change that mindset, if we give that mindset to everyone right from the beginning, we call education. Education is only a tool, but we have not given them the purpose and the mission and the reality about themselves. Once they know that they are the power which enlivens everyone, and they are same power which enlivens everyone, so my role is to add value to everyone. That is how I add value to myself.
All right, I think that'll be the last word here for today's show. We have made some progress in terms of giving us a solution to the jobs problem. It certainly is changing the attitude within the companies between the bosses and the workers, taking care of much more of the workers to be able to give them fulfillment in their life and confidence and feel valuable and feel that they are appreciated, that they're making a difference, but also the idea that there does need to be a growth on a financial basis for everybody in the organization, not just the people at the top. We have explored this over the last few weeks. We want to thank Dr. Jagsheet Singh again for his, especially last week, he really gave us a lot of mathematical information and based on his work with algorithms, that was really valuable. Today, it was more with your own personal thoughts, which we also greatly appreciate and welcome. Added an awful lot to this conversation. We appreciate it, Dr. Singh. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to all of our people on our Zoom call here today, especially valuable with their input. I think we're going to ask some of them to be our co-hosts, Ratanjit, in some of our future shows because they have so much that they can add to these conversations. Ratanjit, especially you, thank you. Next week maybe we'll go back to the foundation of oneness again, now that we have a little different platform to build it on in terms of now that, we can see how it can be put right into immediate impact in our world. Perhaps we can just go back and explore that basic concept one more time. Thank you, Ratanjit, as always.
Thank you.
And remember, folks, we're all playing the same game. We'll talk to you again very soon. Have a great week.